With the demonic blade, he must have lost to the bearer of the Drandark, which means he either lost a duel or was betrayed. Remembering the expression he made towards the holy sword, she's sure he was betrayed. She says if he's back and preparing for revenge, he better remember one thing. If she finds him lazy or weak for a second, she'll devour him on the spot. Shen punches her and tells her to shut up because he's the master. The poor thing falls to the ground all bruised, while he smiles, thinking she really has the same personality as before. He then leaves the tent and looking to the side, he realizes everything is chaotic. Amelia calls for him and he asks if something happened. Scared, she says today they found the body of a demonic beast at the entrance to the valley. Shen hesitates, afraid they found the body of the deathworm. Amelia warns it's been a long time since they found such a high-level beast near the borders. Shen asks if there's anything else to say, and she gets scared. He asked again, did anyone say anything about me, any rumors? Suddenly, a knight appears behind, calling his name. It's Yulkin, who says the Duke wants to talk. Shen knows he's in trouble because yesterday when he was hunting, his father's group suddenly appeared. He had to abandon the Hellhound's bodies without being able to clean anything. All he didn't want was to attract attention before entering the academy, and so he presents himself in his father's tent. Sure, his father already knows everything. His father greets him while Shen hesitates about what he'll say. Wallace tells him to sit, and Shen frowns, wondering how he'll get out of this now. His father says he'll be direct and asks what he was doing last night. Sweating, Shen lies, saying he went to bed early. Wallace seems to believe it for a second, but finds it very strange since the cut on the wolf was very similar to his blade. Is he jumping to conclusions by thinking that? Shen asks if something is wrong, while Wallace finds it unbelievable that a young boy has done something like that. Shen calls his father again, who asks if he heard about what happened last night, and he warns that they still need to investigate, but it seems to be something from the Mist organization. Hesitant, Shen asks, Mist. His father explains that it's an organization that has existed since ancient times, and they don't know its goal. But they have massacred countless nobles under the pretext of purification. Only that suddenly they disappeared. The last time they were seen was 300 years ago, but the same mist was present at the Deathworm, and that residue of power is only left by those who venerate the god of the mist. In his speculation, whoever killed the worm belongs to the mist. Shan is impressed that he managed to track down an organization that disappeared 300 years ago with just that. Wallace says he doesn't know why they disappeared, but he tells him to be cautious and he will report it to the Empire. Our protagonist is relieved. It seems he will be able to escape suspicion. While his father thinks it doesn't make sense to connect such a young boy to all this, and he tells him that the discussion is over. And then he asks if he'd heard about the visit coming today. Cheyenne says he heard it was someone from the royalty. His father approaches, saying yes, and then he wants to ask him for a little favor. Sweating, Cheyenne is curious about this favor. A knight sounds a signal announcing the arrival of your majesty. Wallace and everyone on the battlefield bow and welcome the Emperor. The Emperor, who looks like a pale vampire, says hi to Wallace. He approaches him and says they are old friends, no need to be formal. Then he asks if the boy next to him is his son. Cheyenne introduces himself and says he's the youngest of the Vert family. The Emperor tells Wallace it's amazing to see that his son is on the front line. Really, his kids are extraordinary. The favor the father asked Cheyenne for was to introduce himself as his son, because in his past life he always stayed hidden and nobody even knew he existed. The Emperor then says it was the perfect time for him to introduce himself as well. A shoe descends from the carriage and she introduces herself as Erin Sevelris, the 5th princess of the Empire. Cheyenne remembers that she was known as the Unlucky Princess. One of the favors his father asked for was to escort the girl. He was confused because he wasn't very strong and wanted to know why his father asked for that. His father explained that it was just for him to keep her company since they would be entering the same academy and are the same age. Cheyenne remembers that in his past life he saw her at the academy while changing classes a few times. Wallace explained that it's always good to know someone from the royal family, and even though she won't be staying here for long, it's a good opportunity. Our protagonist thought he wasn't very interested, but he understood his father's intentions. He wanted him to have a relationship with her like his father has with the Emperor. However, Cheyenne says that his father chose the wrong person since that girl wouldn't serve his purpose. He sighs, saying he can't reveal the reason since only he knows the future. As inconvenient as it may be, for now he will have to follow these requests. As they walked with the troops, Erin asked why the lake was red. Cheyenne explained that it was the Blood Lake and there was no special reason for that color. The injured creatures jump into it to recover mana, and because of that, it has that color. Erin asks if it's red, then why are there a lot of monster remains, and Cheyenne says that's basically it. She then asks what's at the end of it. Cheyenne says there's a demon kingdom there, and she wants to know if there's a demon king there. Our boy warns that if the lake continues, she will find the king in flesh and bone. He's teasing her for asking such a silly question. Suddenly, they see a flash of light. A yellow smoke cuts through the sky, and Erin asks what that is. Cheyenne says a golden light means the entry of demonic creatures. She gets scared, asking if they've already arrived, while Wallace orders everyone to protect the majesty and that they are going to the 3rd outpost. The Emperor says he's disappointed, and Wallace asks what he means by that. The Pale One then draws his sword and says he's not here just for a visit, it's because he was already bored and missing the battle. Wallace lowers his head, saying he understands, and the Emperor tells his group that they will assist the eradication team in getting rid of the creatures. Wallace calls Shan to go too, who responds immediately. Erin is confused and asks if he's really going to fight against the creatures. He says yes, he's here in the background, but he always fights on the front line. She says she wants to go with him too. He questions what she's doing, while she says they're the same age, so there's no problem. But Shine warns that the battlefield is not a playground. But she's insistent, saying it doesn't matter, she wants to go. He then calls Yulkin, who appears behind her and says he'll take her to the safest area possible. She turns around and Yulkin says, "Come with me, princess." Yelling at Cyan, she says he's insolent and for treating a princess of the Empire like that. Approaching, he warns that her dilly-dallying here will cause a lot of people to die on the front line. Would she take responsibility for that? She starts crying, after all, she's just a child. He then turns away and tells her to leave soon and stop being a spoiled brat. The three remain silent. In the battlefield, the soldiers are being absorbed by what seems like demonic slugs. Wallace raises his sword and tells them to return to formation. He points in the direction and says they should protect the Majesty and kill all those creatures. With a war cry, the soldiers enter the battle. Dion Severos had two wives, one named Anna, who had already died, and another known as Cassandra, who was the current ruler of the Empire. The first wife bore two, and the second two more. But the fifth princess was born from a peasant woman, so everyone looked down on her. Still, she did not submit to anyone. As a descendant of the imperial family, she fulfilled all her obligations and studied more than anyone else. However, many were against her. With false accusations, they expelled her from the imperial palace and she was taken to an isolated place, thus receiving the title of Unlucky Princess. Karam asks if that's what he heard from his father in his past life. Cheyenne says when it comes to politics and reign, things are like that, while the electric slugs are being cut on the battlefield. Watching from afar the explosions, he recognizes that the Emperor is really amazing. He plants the sword in the ground and activates a sacred ray, easily defeating all the slugs around him. Cheyenne heard that this guy's magic reaches 8 stars. If he hadn't become Emperor, he would be the president of the Magic Council. Obviously, these medium creatures are nothing to him. A while later, Wallace and the Emperor are drinking together, talking about the old times. The Emperor talks about the current state of the Empire. In recent years, many nobles have been murdered and tension is rising. Wallace says this probably has something to do with it. The Emperor reveals that all the murdered nobles were considered corrupt officials, and a black mist is being found in all the crimes. Does he know anything about it? Wallace says that the followers of the Black Mist seem to have restarted their activities, since he also found something near the base. The Emperor says that could be the case, but they will have to investigate a little more. He even wanted to thank these guys for getting rid of these trash, but this is increasing the tension in the Empire too much. And there's something that particularly caught his attention. One of the nobles said that the 5th princess was involved in these incidents. Wallace asked, are people trying to connect her to this? The Emperor says he knows it doesn't make sense to blame a child, and asks Wallace to take care of his daughter if he dies. Wallace makes the oath of this promise, and the Emperor thanks him. That night it was raining in the tents, and Emily was asking if he really did that. Cheyenne just ignored it, saying he was leaving. But Emily wanted to know if he really said those things to the princess. This way, he'll never be able to get married, he'll live a lonely life. Cheyenne told her to forget about it, he was going out to train, and she asked if he was really going in this rain. He told her not to worry and go to sleep, only Erin was clearly already there. Emily got a scare and asked who she was. She lowered her hood and asked if he was going somewhere. But if he's not busy, she wanted to talk about something. Seeing the princess, Emily's eyes even sparkled. Erin asked how long they had been there, and Cheyenne said it had been over a month. However, he wants to know her reason for being there. She hesitated without saying anything, and both asked Emily to leave them alone, who was already smiling mischievously, and she left saying they should enjoy the tent. Cheyenne knows he's 40 and not at all interested in her. Erin apologizes for what happened that morning. Awkwardly, Cheyenne says he also acted wrong, and she laughs, saying she would have done the same. She says she knows he is recognized by those around him, unlike her. Cheyenne didn't imagine she had that kind of personality. She says she knows he goes to school and wants to be his friend. However, Cheyenne interrupts her, apologizes, and says unfortunately he can't help her. If she's here to get closer to him, it's better for her to leave. She lowers her head, saying she only said that so they could get closer, but he's very cruel. Does he think she's just a princess by title? Cheyenne says nothing. Crying, she says she understands now. From his perspective, he can't gain anything by getting close to her and apologizes for wasting his time. Maybe she made a mistake thinking they could have a conversation, but he's completely different from Lord Eshel. Hearing that name gives Cheyenne a fright. He turns and grabs her arm, but she tells him to let go and asks why he's acting like that. Cheyenne asks her how she knows about his older brother. She says she met him when she visited the academy last year, and he told her to continue being that strong princess. Knowing his brother's nature very well, he knows it doesn't make sense for him to be giving advice. This means his manipulation has already begun at this moment. Cheyenne then says he'll give her some advice, but suddenly the tent starts shaking. Emily enters suddenly and tells them to run, but a pillar is almost crushing them already. The explosion happens and Emily is thrown from the tent. From afar, everyone sees a giant ogre and recognizes it as the young master's tent. Emily is desperate, crying for the two, while the ogre raises its club. The emperor asks what he means by that, and at night informs that the tent where Princess Erin was has been attacked by a high-level creature. He then orders to bring all the troops from the battlefront. While wanting to know who she encountered in such a dangerous place, the giant ogre continues to destroy the entire back part of the base, and hidden there, Cheyenne can't believe there's an ogre in that part, a type of creature that only appears in the depths of the valley. He's wondering if maybe it's his fault when Emily calls for him. She's crying, saying she thought he was dead. Remembering the moment of impact, he managed to grab Erin and dodge the blow. Obviously, someone who subdued the Demon King's army wouldn't die to an ogre. Erin asks if the knights will be okay, and Emily reassures her that everything is fine, and they are very strong. But she cries, saying if she weren't there, this wouldn't have happened. It's all her fault. The knights say it's okay, their duty is to protect them. Smiling, one of them says she can trust that they will give their lives. However, Shan warns him to run, and an ogre's hand is coming from behind. The poor guy is crushed and coughs up blood. Soon he's lifted by the giant ogre who is on the backs of the two. Cheyenne tells the princess to stay on his back, and the ogre seems to smell something. He recognizes it as he thought, and these monsters are there because of him. He's going to tell Emily to grab the princess and run, but before he finishes, she already grabbed her and ran off. The poor guy thinks the girl is fast even when it's time to run away. The ogre is coming to crush him, and he won't be able to use the demon blade so that no one suspects him. He's curious why these creatures are hunting him and what smell they're sensing. Karam says to him that he's been drinking the blood of many demon creatures, and now for the monsters, he has a terrible smell that attracts them. Cheyenne gets angry. The damn sage knew this and didn't tell him. She smiles, asking if he forgot that all she wants is his body. He grabs her and tightens his grip, turning her into the dagger who wants to know what he's doing. Chen realizes he won't have an option. He'll have to go all out against this beast. He throws himself, saying he doesn't care, and the ogre comes swinging. With one swift movement, he manages to tear the creature's arm off. Then he appears behind its neck and slices it as well. The boy's got swag, and with just 2 cuts, the beast is lying dead on the ground. He says now it's just a matter of killing the curious ones. In front of him, there's a bunch of creatures that make Karam say she's very excited for this festival. However, he gets a shock when a demonic dragon appears. The dragon roars to the skies, and Karam tells him not to be afraid. It's still just a little one. Shan immediately activates the manifestation of the demon blade. Pointing the dagger, he says it needs to devour him. Meanwhile, the army is facing the ogres that invaded the base. The Emperor and Wallace have just killed the last one, and he asks if there's any trace of the princess. Wallace apologizes, saying she was in his son's tent, and the Emperor says he must be worried about his son. He replies that no, he doesn't have to worry about that creature. The important thing is the princess. The Emperor is shocked. Wow, this father is cruel. Suddenly, someone informs them that they found Princess Erin and she comes to speak with her father. He asks if she's hurt and she says no, but he needs to hurry to save him. Young Master Shine is in danger because of her. He tells her to calm down and explain properly. Wallace asks Emily if she's Cheyenne's maid and she confirms. He then tells her to explain quickly what happened. Trembling, Emily explains that Cheyenne drew the attention of the creatures so the princess could escape. Wallace doesn't say anything, and one of the knights says he remembers the location. If they have the command, they can go there to rescue him. The Emperor yells at Wallace, wanting to know why he hasn't ordered them to go already. But Wallace says they won't go. The Emperor and Erin are shocked, asking what he's talking about. Wallace says the recovery of His Highness is the priority. If this place falls, the entire demonic beasts will invade the Empire. They first need to rebuild the base because that's how they'll prevent further losses. Emily then asks what they'll do with the young master. Wallace says the boy has already fulfilled his obligation by evacuating the princess, and that's how things work in the Vert House. The Emperor and Erin observe him saying that, while she thinks again it's all her fault. Suddenly, they hear a roar in the sky, and when Erin looks up, the dragon is passing by. However, she's incredulous when she sees our boy holding onto its tail and being carried away. In this world, dragons are the closest creature to the gods, besides being considered the most evolved living existence. Normally, it's an honor to meet such a noble creature, so why is it flying so close to these people? Erin screams for him, and the Emperor asks Wallace what his son is doing there. Wallace is silent, and the Emperor keeps asking why he's not doing anything. While up there, Cheyenne doesn't know what he's doing. He just wanted to drink a bit of blood, but now things have gotten complicated. As soon as the dragon appeared, he challenged it. He saw a bunch of weak monsters attack him and sent them flying to the front. He used the Furious Mist ability and cut through the entire battlefield. He approached the dragon and realized it really wasn't an adult yet. But the dragon prepared an attack and the boy got scared. The explosion happened and a laser cut through the battlefield. He managed to dodge, and by the dragon's head, he told it it's just a baby. So how does it have the courage to spit on him when they meet? He sent a slash that hit the dragon right in the eye. He was floating midair, and the dragon took advantage to attack him head-on. When he was about to be pierced, he smirked and activated the mist blade, using the 8 fluttering peels to cut the dragon from various directions. The beast fell and exploded the entire ground, and he felt that it really was impossible to kill a dragon. His shoulders were already done. But now that on the ground, it's time for the final blow. The dragon flaps its wings to create distance, and Cheyenne knows it's going to use the laser again. However, when he looked, the dragon was fleeing in fear, flapping its wings. Cheyenne jumped towards it, shouting, "You won't escape, you coward." And that's how he ended up hanging onto the beast. The problem is that when he glanced down, everyone could see him. So how will he explain this? Kieran asks why he's acting like a statue, and he asks if she doesn't see everyone down there. Karen was angry, saying that she'll have to use her now that she's invoked her. But Cheyenne says that if he does anything demonic, he'll be stopped. She shouts, "So what will you do, kid?" He says he's thinking and tells her to shut up. Down below, Wallace begins to conjure a light magic. Cheyenne recognizes instantly that it's an 8-star attack. He can't believe his father would attack his own son like this. And that's exactly what he does as he raises his sword to the heavens. Cheyenne is desperate, wondering what kind of father he has. But the dragon descends toward the swords and starts dodging everything. He says it's good work by the dragon, congratulating his friend and telling him not to take it. The problem is another one appears behind him. Coming almost in his face, he already knows he can't dodge this one. It hits his leg where he was clinging, and Cheyenne is thrown. As he falls, he's sad, thinking he lost his lunchbox. While Karen is telling him to protect himself, he falls headfirst. Our guy says he can't use any mist technique. She comes at him, telling him to stop being cautious or he'll die like this. He tells her to shut up, he's thinking. In the end, he really won't die, and she can't believe he's going to do this. Until he has an idea. Down below is the Red River. He says he has no choice but there. Someone from afar observes the dragon fleeing and says it's rare to see such a sight. The guy behind him says it's just a kid who must have gotten lost from the group. The silver-haired guy points in a direction and asks if there are demons there. But the friend responds that there, in fact, is the human region. He looks at the horizon and gets curious, saying that dragons shouldn't be defeated by humans. Staying silent for a second, a guy with glasses asks if anything happened. He points, saying he feels a strange energy coming from that direction, almost familiar. The friend responds that they can go check it out. However, he's forbidden from annihilating absolutely everything out of boredom. He spreads his wings and says it's okay, he won't cause any trouble, and he flies off saying he'll be right back. Meanwhile, Cheyenne is emerging from the blood lake. He throws himself onto the rock, cursing up to the 10th generation, and he asks Karen if she's alive. Karen, all slimy, tells him not to talk to her. She's contemplating how to kill him. He says he'll give her a little wash when they get back, and she says okay then. But she tells him to wake up to reality. They're in the demon realm. Cheyenne tells her not to worry, it's very rare to find a high-level demon in this place. Someone behind him says he knew he would find something interesting. Cheyenne is startled. This is a voice I'll never forget. The demon behind him asks if he's a human, and Cheyenne knows he's the demon king Valkyrian. He remembers that in the past, this guy said the same thing, that Cheyenne was as if evil had gathered in one person. Valkyrian asks why he's not answering. Is he not human by any chance? In an instant, he's on his back, asking if he really wants a fight. Cheyenne is startled and turns, but Valkyrian easily dodges. But he managed to cut a tiny strand of hair. Leaving him impressed, he says that indeed races have endless possibilities. Karen asks him who he is, and the protagonist replies that he's the Demon King. She says if he's the Demon King, he has no chance of winning. He knows it's impossible. The best option would be to escape from there. However, his hand is trembling and he wonders if he can do that. But he's surprised when Valkyrian tells him to relax. He thinks he came here to fight a kid, for God's sake, and lies on the ground saying, "Do you really think I'm going to hit a child?" Cheyenne is all confused there, wondering why this guy is lying down. Valkyrian says he will ask one more time if he's a human. Cheyenne says yes, and Valkyrian wants to know how he ended up there. Our protagonist explains that he was carried by the sea, and the guy says it seems to be his first time in the realm, right? However, he senses strange energy and asks Cheyenne what he is. He says he's just a normal human. Valkyrian says he says that, but it seems like he knows who he is. Our guy says it doesn't make sense. It's the first time they've met. Valkyrian stretches his arms, saying it might be because it's the first time he's seen a human too. He then asks why he came here while wondering why this guy is so calm. Valkyrian says he felt a strange energy while he was walking around. He says that as the Demon King, he needs to keep an eye on the lands he rules. Valkyrian then gets up and tells Cheyenne to repeat what he said. Cheyenne says, "You're the Demon King who keeps an eye on the lands he rules." He points to his face and says he's not surprised. Now he's sure he's been seen somewhere. What kind of kid reacts like this? Cheyenne knows that the invasion of the demon realm is about to begin, but this guy is completely different from what he knew. What happened to change his attitude so much? So he asks him as the Demon King what he wants to do. Valkyrian smiles, saying he's quite reckless to ask something like that to the Demon King. And then he says it's obvious, right? As long as his subordinates are alive and eating, there's nothing else he can do. But everything changes if someone wants to change that. In that case, he'll end them all. That's his simple obligation as the Demon King. For a moment, Cheyenne felt the same demonic aura from the guy who attacked the Empire the first time. Somehow, he has to prevent that from happening. He then asks Valkyrian if he wants to make a deal and asks what it is. Cheyenne says that in the future, something will happen to him, an incident that will put all his subordinates at risk. Valkyrian asks him to explain properly the nonsense he's talking about. He explains that he doesn't know exactly how it will happen, but it will be an incident that will become the catalyst to start the war against humanity. Valkyrian crosses his arms, asking if he really thinks the Demon King, would attack his land. And Cheyenne says that's why he wants to make a deal so that no matter what happens, at least he won't start a war. Valkyrian says he has no idea what he's talking about, but if he accepts it, what does he gain from it? The protagonist says that no matter what happens, he will help the Demon King. Approaching him, Valkyrian says he seems to know something. He's sweating, and Valkyrian asks him his name. After introducing himself, Valkyrian says he will keep that promise as the King of Demons. He flies off, saying it's good for him to keep his as well since this is a deal. And he smiles, saying it's now sealed. After contacting the Demon King, some knights found Cheyenne. Seeing him emerging from the Red Lake, they said it was a miracle he was still alive. And with that, he received the title of the one who survived the demonic dragon. He was then taken to the monastery on the front lines, a place used as a military hospital. Cheyenne asks someone to repeat what they said. Erin is hesitant to say anything. She holds back and shouts, asking if he wants to be hers. The poor guy is confused, not understanding what she means by that, but he says he's not interested. She obviously gets startled. She starts crying again, saying it was expected. She really is the fifth princess with no power at all. Cheyenne in bed is thinking she's really starting to annoy him. He knows Princess Erin is the weak link in the Imperial family, and the way she's risking it, her end is obvious. The problem is he can't shake off the idea that his damn brother is behind her death. He then says she's right. Currently, she really can't offer any benefit to him. She has no possession, takes a hit. Besides, it's extremely risky to get involved with her politically, takes another hit. But he says he'll take care of her until she figures out what's necessary. She asks if he's really going to do this. Cheyenne says yes, it's a promise so she doesn't need to worry. She gets up, saying she understood that when she manages to turn things around, he recognizes her power. She points at him, saying she doesn't know when, but she will make him recognize her power. He says he's very eager, while thinking she was depressed just a second ago. Before leaving, she says there's one more thing, and thanks him for surviving. Then she leaves and he stays silent. In the depths of the camps in a forest nearby, a hooded guy looks around. He takes a square in his hand and smiles, saying that now it's almost done. A voice asks him, "Reynold Crimson, was that you?" He can't move his body as if he's being held by invisible chains. The person behind him says it's a small dimensional box, and considering the timeline, it was before it was commercialized. This box can hold anything as long as the person desires. From behind, Cheyenne says that's the masterpiece created by the Magic Council. He observed the guy for a whole year smuggling things from the Empire. He grabs the box, saying he'll take it now. Magical Knight of 7 Stars, Reynold Crimson, who asks who he is. Seeing him, he recognizes him as Cheyenne Verret. He throws the items from the box on the ground while Reynold wants to know how he found out about it. Cheyenne ignores him, saying he must have an informant to know where to be at the right time. Reynold keeps insisting he has no idea what he's talking about. But Cheyenne says he can't lie because the blood of those creatures is already being sold in the Empire. That's how the Lice sent him that Hellhound blood gift. The guy is sweating, wondering who informed this kid and what's happening. He has no idea how Cheyenne trapped him, but as long as he can move a bit. And then he extends his hand, using a fire magic to kill Cheyenne. He gets startled and the explosion comes towards him. Seeing the smoke, Reynold says it's a good thing he took this seriously. You really can't underestimate the sum of the verts. Then he finally relaxes. But suddenly his hand is cut off. He screams in pain and can't understand what that mist in front of him is. Seeing Cheyenne, he can't believe he belongs to the mist. But he grabs him by the neck and throws him against the tree. Cheyenne gives him 2 options: either he admits and dies peacefully, or he doesn't admit and dies in agony. In the trading area in the western part of the field, people are organizing some boxes. They see there are 2 potion boxes and are excited. They're just curious about how much is in that big box. But upon opening it, they both get startled. It was just Reynold's head. From the mountain, Karen asks if he's really going to let the other guys live. He says yes, that's enough as a warning. These guys always smuggled demon items into the Empire. The items then reached the Magic Council, a place where people did any kind of madness to understand magic. Cheyenne says what they're going to do with demon blood is unthinkable, so they need to be separated. Karen says in this new life he's only living for others, but he says he's only preventing other people from using demon blood. In the Empire, in a certain mansion, Eshel is receiving a letter, and he finds out that Cheyenne has just gone to the front line with his father. There's a succulent girl in bed. This bastard is a villain but knows how to enjoy life. She asks if this Cheyenne isn't the younger brother of another mother. Eshel says yes and says that kid is trouble in several ways. So we'll have to go there and leave a like on that video. That way he helps Mamoru produce some juicy content for his viewers, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out. You guys remember that the previous chapter ended with his brother saying he'd have to take a look at Cian. Some suitcases are piled up, and Emily celebrates that they're finally out of the front line. She's sure the academy will be a much calmer place than the front line, while Shan knows it will be scary. The academy isn't quite the place Emily's dreaming of. In fact, it's a cruel place where lives are destroyed by political interests, a place dominated by envy and greed, where strangely enough, studies aren't even a priority. But Emily's there dreaming, saying she'll find a Getchit instructor, and Cyan starts to realize she's going to follow him at the academy. Sometime later, he's back in the duchy, having fun. He hears a sound and looks to the side. It's Krantz, startling him. Everyone's asking what he's doing there. Cyan tries to say hi, but the boy has already run off. Karam asks who that idiot was. He says it's Krantz, but he doesn't care about him. Karam says his brother is the complete opposite, and he says it doesn't make sense because his opposite is someone else. The door opens and he's back at the mansion. Only this time, all the servants greet him. Stan remembers that they didn't even look at him before, but now their courtesy is insignificant, probably his father's doing. Indeed, hard work has changed a lot in the last year. He puts his hand on the doorknob, but when he's about to open the door, he feels some energy and says he recognizes who it is. To make him so angry, he opens it slowly. He's already sure that only that bastard can be behind that door. Eshel says it's been a long time since they've seen each other, while all Cyan can think is that he has to stay calm. Since he doesn't say anything, Eshel asks if he forgot about his brother by any chance. What Cyan's trying to do is stay calm, while Eshel says maybe he forgot since he last saw him when he went to the academy. But Shan's already got red eyes, realizing he won't be able to stay calm. Already preparing a dagger in hand, he's sure he'll kill him now, but Kiram holds his wrist and warns him that if he doesn't want to have his skull smashed, he'd better control himself. Besides, killing him now wouldn't be fun. With that, San calms down and greets his older brother. Eshel then asks, "Do you remember me?" Shion says it's impossible to forget a brother's face. Eshel pets his head, saying he's very happy. He was worried his little brother wouldn't remember him. It's a relief. He even heard that his little brother's fencing has improved drastically, and soon he'll be helping House Verder. Even better, he'll be helping him on the battlefield. Saiyan says it's true and he's very eager to help his brother in battles. Eshel stares at him and says he's very relieved to hear that, as the reason he came here was just to find him. Saiyan knows Eshel is the kind of person who completely ignores those who are of no use to him. And now that he realizes his brother is only there out of interest in using him, he relaxes and says he also really wanted to see his brother. Meanwhile, Emily brings their suitcases. They're exhausted. She drops them in the hallway, saying this was too hard. She shouts to the door, asking how he dared to leave everything to Emily, when suddenly Eshel appears in front of her. He smiles at her, saying he heard they are very close, and he wants her to keep working hard for Cian. They leave while both thank her. Then she shouts at Cian, saying she almost died of fright because he didn't warn her that Eshel was here. Cian ignores her and asks her to leave for a while, and she wants to know why. Coldly, he looks at her and says it won't happen again. She is startled by his expression. Cian goes to the bathroom and starts vomiting into the toilet. He's dizzy and asks Karam why she stopped him, who replies he should be thanking her. He tells her it was the perfect chance. If he were defeated, she would take over the body. Karam says he doesn't understand how much more hatred he feels, the better for her. He smiles, saying she really is like that. Meanwhile, a guy approaches Eshel's door and asks to come in. Eshel tells him to enter, and the guy informs him that he confirmed the location of the second young lady. Eshel asks where, and the guy confirms she's residing on the northern continent in the land of the elves there in Pruina. Eshel smiles, saying it's incredible how she manages to even reconcile with a race she hates among foreigners. That's a testament to the affinity she has. Then he asks to be notified if she shows any sign of returning to the Empire. The guy asks if there was any event that changed Eshel's mood, and Eshel asks why he thinks so. The guy explains that he's radiating a much brighter aura. Was meeting his brother really that amazing? And Eshel says incredible might express it that way, but right now he's pretty pissed off. The poor servant trembles, they're apologizing. Eshel paid close attention to San's look and interpreted it as someone who just saw his enemy. Did he see something wrong? He knows there's something strange about that kid, and he'll have to watch him closely. The butler says he understands and says he'll send someone to watch him. Eshel stands there staring out the window, just remembering Shan's look, wondering what he's hiding. In front of the mansion, carriages gather, while Emily shouts that she's very disappointed with the young master. He says it's her fault that she won't be able to go since she's not fit to guard, and she gets angry, saying he should have said that before. The carriage starts and Cyan says goodbye to her, telling her to chill out, while she tells him not to cry just because she's not there. Sig makes a silly face, saying he understood, while Emily is shocked that he's really going like that. She starts screaming, saying that even if he's teased and beaten by everyone, he shouldn't be discouraged. From afar, she shouts for him to come back well. While he remembers that when he was 8 years old, he had a very high fever that made him faint. At that time, no one else took care of him, and it was Emily who carried him on her back. Even in the rain, she was the only one in the family who tried to find a doctor to help him. After a long time searching, an old man opened the door. If it weren't for her that day, he probably would have been found dead in one of the mansion's rooms. With a radiant smile, he warns her that if she keeps following him like this, she'll end up dead, and he can't take her to the academy because she's too precious to him. Now he's alone in the carriage, but impressed that they've placed 6 intermediate knights just to take the young master to the academy. Probably he'll see some blood before getting there. It was already late afternoon. Some knights looked at each other and decided to stop there. They informed Cian, who asked how far they still were. They said they were near the central city of Saffron, and they would probably arrive there tomorrow morning. Cian says he noticed and tells them to call him when they finish packing, but he already realizes that this is a lie because this forest is not close to Saffron. Camping in the middle of the afternoon in an isolated place and still lying about the location, all this makes it obvious that they are planning something. Cian starts to leave the carriage when they say everything is ready. He leaves pretending to be clueless, saying the air there is very good. Already surrounded by the 6 knights, he wants to know whose order it was. In the background, one hesitates, sweats run down everyone's faces, and no one says anything. But one of them has a little smile. Cian notices this and asks again whose order it was. The guy starts pulling out his sword, saying he doesn't need to know since he'll die soon. They approach, apologizing and saying it's not personal, but out of respect, they'll make it as painful as possible, so he just closes his eyes. The knight advances ready to cut, saying goodbye. The blade is about to hit Shin's neck, and the guy's head flies off. It falls like a trash bag on the ground, and the guys look without believing. Cian says he'll ask again whose order it was. Now everyone is scared, trembling, not knowing what to do. Shin asks why they're so frozen like that. Did they think it would be so easy? One of the knights thinks he can't even believe what his eyes see, and another one tries to attack them, but this time from behind. However, in an instant, Cian is already on the other side and has made 2 cuts. The other one takes another hit on the shoulder and one on the arm. One of them tries to take advantage to run away, but obviously he's already agonizing. Shin only attacked Karim from behind. The guy who was standing and thinking is now crying, wondering if this is something an 11-year-old can do. He hasn't even moved yet, and everyone is already dead. Apparently, he didn't survive that dragon luckily. Putting intermediate knights to do this mission was a failure. The guy crying falls to the ground. Shan approaches him once again and tells him to say who ordered it. The guy warns the moment everything was the Duchess Margaret's doing. Shen feels a bit awkward. He didn't even need to do anything against the guy. He already said everything. The poor guy is crying, trembling, right? Why did he speak? The following the carriage is moving and he's taking Shan calmly up there. And he explains to Cian that it seems it was the young master Krantz's doing. He somehow asked his mother to prevent Shan from bothering him at the academy. And apparently this whole mission was the result of that request. Cian remembers the fool who keeps running away and is behind this. He really will have to give him a little help at the academy. The guy then calls Shin, a little embarrassed, and asks what will happen to him now. Is he going to die too? Shan says he doesn't seem very attached to his life. The guy says he knows they were trying to kill him, so it doesn't make sense that he wouldn't die. Shan tells him to at least drive this carriage properly so he can have some use alive. The guy understands what he meant and thanks Shin, who says they seem to have arrived right in the central city of Saffron. A vase attacked on the ground. Margaret is asking how they found the 6 dead. The butler informs that this is the case and that the young Master Xian arrived in the city of Saffron 10 days ago. Margaret angrily asks the butler said there wouldn't be any problem. So what happened? The butler apologizes, saying they underestimated the boy, and she says it's impossible for a 10-year-old kid to have killed so many people. The butler says he probably had help from someone they didn't know. But it's alright, they just have to send an assassin to infiltrate the academy. She says enough. And if he finds out it was her doing and he mistreats Krantz because of it, already remembering that Xian asked if her son needed to graduate. Biting her lip, she says enough. It's better not to do anything else before things get complicated. Also, no one can know about this incident, so it's best to eliminate all those affiliated with it. Eshel's spy listened to the whole conversation. It's been 10 days since Xian left Saffron. Brian has been playing his role as a servant all this time, and he knows that news of his survival must have reached the mansion. However, at this rate, he'll probably reach the academy without any problems. He'll have to start wondering if he'll have to get rid of Brian, who suddenly opens the little window with a smile, saying they've arrived. Shannon says, alright, you got it. That city brings memories to him. It can't be said they were good memories, but this academy changed him a lot. He presents the coat of arms of House Verd at the reception. A bit excited, the girl says she'll register him. Yes, everything's fine. They'll receive his room too, and everything will be fine. Shan notices that she acted somewhat strangely. Is there a problem? Then she hands him a letter with a golden key. He startles and asks if she gave him the right one. Ryan lets the suitcases fall to the ground and startles. When he wonders if this is the place he'll stay, the royal dormitory, the best there is. But Shane remembers that in his past life, this didn't happen to anyone. This means that someone's influence is there. He asks Brian if that was the last suitcase. Brian affirms, saying he brought everything. Shane puts his hand on his coat, saying that now they're at the academy and he's finished bringing the suitcases. Brian's job is done. Brian's sweating, saying, "Hey, wait a minute, kid." With that, they throw a bag of coins into his hand. He startles and asks what it is. Shane says it should be enough for him to start over wherever he's going. He advises him not to return to the mansion or he'll die. Brian stands still for a moment without saying anything. Suddenly, he kneels and says that he, Brian Kendrick, the official knight of the old, would like to serve young Master Shan until the end of his life. Shan asks if he really is a knight. Brian says yes, but he's not very good, so he's more of an assistant, really. However, his father once said that for a not-so-talented knight, if he found someone he could trust, he shouldn't hesitate. Shan says it's nonsense. Brian is confused, asking what he means by that. Shan asks if he's not afraid of being betrayed later. Brian says that even if that happened, he wouldn't mind, and Shan warns him not to do anything like that. Leaving through the door, he says it's a hassle. It's an entrance ceremony, so they'll go straight to the exam. Brian, sweating a bit, says it's okay. The academy's dean and a girl talk about how there are many talented people this year. All the students are gathered in a room. In the middle of the room is a girl surrounded by an aura. It's a Rin Savelru. Magical grade of 2 stars, a physique grade B, and a light element of 52%. Another guy named Set Shaharkin is a 3-star mage with a physique grade A and an earth element of 71%. Scratching his beard, the old man says these kids were incredible, but this boy is invert. Magical grade 1 star and a physique grade S, darkness element 92%. The academy instructor at Sirika Negriti says that even the girl named Elise Vert, who is considered the daughter of God, had a water element of 88%. The old man says it's interesting how the person everyone thought had an untouchable talent was surpassed by his brother. He is the chancellor of the academy, Kundal Quizzle. However, Sirika says his element is darkness, and the director says that due to the nature of darkness, some people really don't manifest it and waste any talent. But he tells her that Xian received a royal dormitory. She says she heard about it from the other instructors, and he says it was an order from the emperor. It seems Xian saved Princess Erin, who was with him on the front line of some demon beasts. The emperor seems to have even been thinking about marriage. The 5th princess, who was excluded from the throne line, and the Verdi family, which has always been the cradle of talented warriors. The instructor asks what she thinks will happen, and Sirika replies that if this happens, it will accelerate the revolt happening in the empire and maybe more blood will be shed. The director says for now they can do nothing but observe whether this child will become a hero or a disaster. Walking down the hall, Xian is thinking about the 92% because in his last life it was 80%. Was it because of the blood of the demon beasts he drank? Walking down the hall, he sees someone. It was Krantz, who startles, saying Xian looks odd. The chubby one behind him asks if this is a boy who's been treating him like a slave. The chubby one looks at him and asks if it's true that he doesn't even know who his mother is. And Xian recognizes this boy as the son of a Marcus Popper Penneron. In his past life, he also stood by Krantz tormenting him. So it's very good to have found them together like this. The chubby one tells Krantz to get out of the way. That boy there needs to be crushed. Krantz is sweating, saying it's better not to do that. And he takes a punch and is thrown against the wall. While Krantz is already screaming in despair, Xian still asks Krantz if he doesn't want to talk about some things. Hesitantly, he says yes. The boy is sweating more than a marathon runner when Xian puts his hand on his shoulder. He warns that he doesn't mind him planning these things, but if he finds out one more thing, he won't be able to graduate with all 4 limbs. With that, Krantz falls to the ground desolate and Xian leaves, saying this academy is going to be a lot of fun. In one of the rooms, Sirika is thinking about Xian, saying she'll have to pay a lot of attention to this boy. She walks towards and touches a book, wondering why it's not there. Behind her, Xian asks if she's looking for this as she startles. But she turns all friendly, asking how the student is there. It's a restricted area. However, she thinks it's strange because she couldn't sense his presence. She approaches, asking if he's the boy called Xian, isn't he? Can he return this book? It's research material. He says yes, of course, he'll give it back to her. But it seems like he hands her a sheet when she thanks him. He immediately senses some aura coming. One of the books in the place starts flying, and he asks if she wasn't looking for that. Instructor Sirika, or actually, the current leader of the Miss Assassins. Obviously, she wants to know how he found out. Xian remembers that in his past life, he thought of her as an ordinary instructor. She would ask how his life was in the academy, and he wouldn't say anything. He attended counseling sessions with her. When she talked about his growth potential, he thought he didn't care about that, because to him it seemed like a joke. But one day, Sirika said she was interested in him. It was interesting to see someone with an 84% familiarity with darkness, but Xian replied that it's an element that doesn't always materialize. but Sirika told him that it's just that humanity still doesn't understand darkness properly. Unlike others, she believes his growth potential is infinite. That stirred Shan's emotions, and Sirika said she wished him all the best for his future, while he thought maybe she could guide him, or at least that's what he thought at the time since he was just deceived. The girl behind those glasses is very different from the Academy instructor, since she's the leader of the Mist Assassins Association, hiding within the Academy where most of the continent's nobles gather. Suddenly she says, "All right." She wants to hear the details in her laboratory, so let's go. San startles, she seems calmer than he expected. Looking at the laboratory, he says it looks the same as always. He's about to have coffee when he says apparently she put poison, while he thinks it makes sense now why she was so calm. She says he doesn't need to worry, it's just enough to melt a few organs. But Shan is confident. After eating so many demonias with Emily's cooking, he can digest anything. So he asks for something stronger next time, and she says it's time for them to talk for real, and he wants to know how he knows her identity. Furthermore, he knows the exact location of the commands that are passed in the books nobody picks up at the Academy. Does he want to reveal it to her before she finds out he's also part of the Mist? And Cyan says he doesn't need to prove anything else to her. She stares at him, saying he's feeling too high and mighty just because he's familiar with the element. Cyan tells her that on the way here, everyone was saying he should bring more than just a knight, because a lot of nobles have been dying recently. When does she start the purification process? She gives a little smile, saying the purification process. She activates her aura, saying she has no idea what he's talking about. Cyan says he'll make it clearer then he's talking about the murders. Sirika says he'll regret these threats, and he asks if she's threatening a student. Suddenly, she kicks the table and throws everything at him. Karam seems scared, asking if that's how she's going to act, and punches the table. She's already behind him with a dagger in her hand while he says he's already approved his identity. She goes for it, saying that as the leader of the association, she can't not know one of the Mists. She tries to make a cut, but Shan dodges. She goes for it again, saying he won't escape. Shan pulls Karam, thinking he won't have anything to do, and defends her attack. He says that since she doesn't believe him, he'll have to show her, and he starts attacking her, causing her to defend and retreat. Sweating, she asks if this blade is what she's thinking, the weapon that can only be wielded by those who have been chosen. Kiram's demonic blade. Syan asks if she finally recognizes him, especially since the Mist must be working right now to find her. Sirika wants to know how he knows this. San tells her that the hair she's been searching for is right here in front of her, in a certain street in ruin. In an isolated house, someone uses magic to open a padlock. It was Sirika with Xian, who says he doesn't seem very impressed with the hideout of the Mist being right here. That one is the way to the altar he wants so badly, so he can go alone. Xian walks through the tunnels. That's a subspace created by the powers of the god of the Mist, and because of that, it's much longer than it seems. But he remembers perfectly the direction he has to follow, and each of the traps present. Suddenly, some guys attack him from behind, and he says this reception ceremony is very excessive. He defends against some attacks and retreats backwards. The guys throw a lot of mud at him that he has to defend against, but one of them almost dies and has to defend himself too. Cyan is impressed that the guy managed to dodge that in such a short moment, and the guy is thinking it's amazing and activates his secret technique, which makes several clones of him attack from all directions. But Shan also has his technique. The guys seem to recognize and don't understand how a kid can do that. Sam uses the wave of murderous intent. It's a technique exclusive to those who have been assassins for a long time. It allows you to instill deep fear in everyone around you. The guys can't even breathe and all fall unconscious. Sam knows they won't get up for a while, but it's impressive that there's still one standing. Is he some kind of executive? He then activates another ability, and the guy goes for it. He manages to defend against the attack, but the guy nullified his ability. The mask is thrown to the ground, and she says she can't hold back anymore, Cyanvert. He stands there confused, not understanding. It's Lady Sirika again, saying she wants him to show his true power. He uses another technique, the savage attack, and sends her flying backward. She says he seems interesting. How can he use 2 assassination abilities so easily? She wanted to see his potential, but the boy is already running. Saiyan knows she has something called a desire for combat. When she's consumed by that desire, she'll keep fighting until one of them dies. He who has experienced this has to run. But she's excited, telling him to come back soon because that's what he wants too. She attacks him again, and he manages to defend himself. She says this is a subspace in which no one will notice anything. He doesn't need to hold back. Shan realizes he won't be able to get out of there, and he really will have to use all the techniques. There's a risk she'll end up dead, but there's no other way. But suddenly he feels something and collapses to the ground with a stone. Karam says she knew things would end up like this and tells him to rest for a bit. Sirika asks who she is, and Karam appears, saying she didn't want to get involved. But she already knows who she is, doesn't she? Sirika bows, saying she recognizes the demonic blade Karam. Karam is the one who's angry, asking how she dares to attack her master. Sirika says all this was just a process to confirm his identity. Karam says she should have just contacted God instead of doing all this, But if she wanted to do it this way, now she'll consider it a challenge. Surika says it's better to worry about the heir first, right? Karim is startled when she sees the boy lying there unconscious, bloodied. Surika explains that the way Karim is materializing is very bad because she's draining all of Xian's life energy. Karim grabs him by the collar angrily, asking how he can be so weak after drinking so much blood. Surika then says that, however, she, as a leader of the Mist, would never refuse a battle. If she truly wants to be an opponent, she cannot refuse. Karim is surprised, saying that girl is very strange. Suddenly, Shan asks her why she materialized. Karim says he doesn't need to worry, she'll just crush that reckless girl. Now it's messed up because Surika is also excited, saying it will be an honor for her. Karim tells her not to beg later, and she replies that she's looking forward to going that far. Suddenly, a voice in the hall says that's enough, and they recognize it as Lord Air's voice. A portal begins to open, and everyone becomes apprehensive. The voice tells her to send the heir to the altar now, and she just agrees. Cyan is excited, saying they'll finally meet. The god of darkness, Heir. Some think that the god of the mist is an evil person, for whom murder is as common as eating. Someone who justifies their actions under the pretense of doing it for the world. However, he says that the death of those people was a good thing, as by paying with their lives, they became righteous people. Most people thought this was insane logic, and that this god was an idiot. Someone who had an interest in protecting those without power. Shan passes through the portal and finds himself face to face with a staircase. From the throne, the god asks if he knows who he is. Shan says it's obvious he's Heir, the god of the Black Mist. The god asks if he is Cyan Vert and wants to know what right he has to consider himself as Heir. Shan questions him, asking if he can't feel that the power of the mist is already present in him. The god says there are paths to becoming an Heir. The first is by delivering the mist stone to the person, and the other is for the mist stone itself to find the Heir. Since he doesn't know Xian, it must be the second case. He knows that the stone that was on the altar disappeared a year ago. The strange thing is that not only did he awaken the Quarren, but he also seems to be using it very well, and his eyes don't seem suitable for his age. With this, the god concludes that he belongs to a timeline he doesn't know. Cyan is somewhat curious and says he thought the god knew everything. The god says that if he was looking for an omnipotent being, he came to the wrong place. He was long disqualified from the status of god. Xian already kind of knew that. However, the god is now wondering why it's strangely too easy for him. Xian asks what he means by that, and the god explains he was sitting here quietly. Now the Heir has appeared. Why did Cyan do all this work for him? Moreover, he brought a rather unpleasant item. To think he would be dissatisfied with the demonic blade and try to take the power of the sacred spear for himself. Cyan smiles, saying he has no interest in that. If this thing never sees the light of day, it will remain nothing but a piece of trash. The god begins to rise, saying he has some very strange habits. However, procedures have to be taken, and as the rules say, raising his arm, he says that now he will be the absolute creator, the Heir who will succeed his power, and he asks if Xian wants that. He remembers that in his past life at this moment, he replied that he would live for his older brother. Obviously, it was foolishness, but at that time, they didn't seem to care much about his answer. When he was gone, the place fell apart, and he wondered if they didn't want something from him. And the god said there are things more important than a foolish conviction. Now Xian thinks that maybe he already knew everything that would happen. He approaches, saying he has no more interest or belief. The god is somewhat confused, and Xian says he will use his power in the most selfish way he can, all for himself. The god says that right and wrong are determined by oneself, and wants to know if he won't regret this decision. It's good for him to answer carefully, or he'll kill him now. Xian says he doesn't care about the results his actions will bring. He won't listen to orders and commands from anyone, as following his own path is the only thing he wants. The god says he seems to have something in mind and asks what it is, but Xian says he won't tell. The god says all he has to do is purify the names given to him, then the rest doesn't matter. However, he appears behind Karim and says it's time to have a little chat with his daughter. He starts pulling her cheeks, saying she's changed a lot. Does she like her master so much? He's trying to give her kisses, saying he's very happy with his daughter's growth, while she's telling him to get out. The god is trying to give her all the love of the flesh while she's calling for help from Xian, who's pretending not to see anything. Then he approaches to give her a kiss, and a pentagram appears. Magic starts to be conjured, and she wants to know what's happening. Suddenly, she takes on physical form. Looking at her hands, she doesn't understand what's happening. Why does she feel like she really has a body now? And Xian realizes he hasn't consumed any of his mana. Kirin wants to know what the hell he did. He says he didn't do anything. He just gave her a little bit of his power. She's shaking his face there while our protag is thinking father and son are indeed identical. The next day in the dorms, Brian went to ask Xian what that was. He said it was nothing special. Don't think too much about it. Brian said it is, young master. He doesn't think they can ignore this situation, both staring at each other, they're sparking. Karim is questioning why Sarika came to visit the young master so early. This way, everyone will be talking about a relationship between instructor and student. Sarika says it's nothing special. She just came to deliver a book to a very studious boy. Angry, Karam says that as a leader, she should behave better, while Surika wants to know why she's so eager to get involved in what others are doing. The proud egg is there like that, doesn't know what to do, better not get involved. He leaves the room saying he's going for a walk. The two are killing each other and Brian is there sweating, not knowing what to do. The city seems to be bustling while Shan observes everything from a pillar. Finally, he manages to relax a bit, but suddenly he smells blood. Someone is thrown to the ground. It gets up there spitting blood all twisted. Some guys there say they should try to do that thing there. It's very terrible, so it's going to be fun. The blonde guy makes a mana ball in his hand. Showing it to her, he tells her to take a look. He pulls her mouth and says he brought something delicious. When a friend brings something delicious, she has to eat it. Or horribly, he closes her mouth desperately. But suddenly someone tells him to stop. One of the students was about to hit a boy with an orb, when Aaron told him not to do that and that it was shameful for a noble to act like that. The blonde guy turned around and warned that he was the son of Duke Rumil, Barrett Rumil, and who she was. She introduced herself as the princess of the Empire, Erin Savelru. The guy smiled, saying it's her, and he wondering who she was. The famous fifth company of the Empire, Miss Erin. He comes face to face, saying it's an honor to meet her. Erin says she's not here to meet him, and that he better explain this situation. He's in front of her. The guy says it's okay. The best thing is to ask the kid. Looks at him and says he speaks up. He's kind of scared. Grabs him by the collar and asks if he's okay. Obviously, he says he's very fine, nothing happened. Erin says it doesn't make sense for him to clearly hide and not be okay with his appearance. And the kid looks to the side, saying he's fine. She should leave now, they were just kidding. Barrett starts laughing, asking if she heard that, isn't it? Apparently, he should be insulted by her. Erin says whatever, she's taking this kid with her. But the guy grabs her wrists and says she's not understanding. She wants to know what he's doing. The blonde guy says the kid already told her to leave. And Erin starts threatening him, saying he's holding the arm of an Empire princess. The blonde guy laughs that it doesn't matter since she's the useless fifth princess. But Shan was nearby and heard everything. And suddenly the guy took an aster from him and turned into a b-boy. Erin blushes when she sees Xian, who's more curious about Reshmus being that kid in front of him. Two people exchange blows in the Empire of Garum Fort Klein. Xian fought against someone. She was the most powerful swordswoman in his time, Reshmus Klein. Oh my heavens, I thought it was a boy. This here is the reverse surprise. You think it's a buddy or a big buddy? She originally belonged to the UCF Empire, but for some reason she joined Gurren's reign after graduating from the academy, and even changed her nationality. San defends himself from the thrown attack. He's surprised when she jumps cutting. He disappears and appears behind her. He gives her a hit in the warrior's spine that falls crushed to the ground. I thought they were training, but in fact he killed her as an order from the Empire. The order was to kill her in a covert way, but she found him and they had a sort of official duel. For him, there was no particular reason. He just saw her as an amazing person, as she reached the peak of swordsmanship without any backing, and didn't want to kill such a talented person without giving her a chance to fight. Friends are calling for Barrett while Reshmus is there somewhat shocked. Barrett starts to get up, asking why there are so many idiots caring about other people's business. He recognizes the kid as Cian Vert and says he heard rumors that he was on the front lines. Is he trying to get involved in their games? Cyan thinks those games are not fun at all. Injecting mana orbs into people's bodies can cause their mana to collapse and the person to never use magic again. Cyan asks if that's the game where you keep putting mana orbs in your mouth. He starts making one of darkness and says he'll join too. But Barrett starts sweating, when Cian already created a Genki Dama above him, asking what he's doing. Why isn't his mouth open yet? Oh, there he goes trying to put the big ball in the blondie's mouth. Back in the dorms, Reshmus is beaten on the bed. Erin says they've taken care of the bruises and she just needs to rest for a while, and she thanks them, saying she can't repay them. For some reason, Erin feels proud, saying that their dear Xian dealt with everything so she doesn't need to worry. Cyan thinks about all of Reshmus's bruises and finds it incredible that she hasn't fainted after so many fractures. She really deserves the title of the strongest swordsman. Suddenly, Reshmus asks if he knows her. Embarrassed, she says she noticed he's been looking at her a lot. Cyan says he thought she was someone he knew but forget it, and apologizes for making her uncomfortable. Erin is just watching what he says and observing the other one who's now saying it's okay, then a little embarrassed. Suddenly, she asks Reshmus where she's staying and if those guys come to do harm to her again. She says she's in the common dorms, and Erin asks if she has any nobility. She says no, she only got in because of a special admission and instructor Veltane. He had promised to help her when she was in the academy, but as soon as she arrived, he was expelled. Shan then understands she lost the person who was supporting her, and says what she's been going through is minimal. Maybe soon she'll be kicked out of there. Erin gets a little sad about this situation, and Cyan tells Erin to accept her as an attendant, and this way she can even learn swordsmanship from the girl. Erin is shocked, asking why are you calling the boy a girl? Dude, can't you see it's a boy? Shan says that person is a girl. Erin's world collapses at that moment. From the back, Reshmus apologizes, saying she didn't mean to deceive anyone. It's just that since she was young, she prefers to wear short hair so people sometimes get confused. In the demon's work, it was the boy who was a girl. Now here it's the girl who's still a boy but inverted. Erin apologizes, crying, saying she couldn't understand and doesn't even know how Sian noticed. Reshma says it's okay. She apologizes. Erin then asks what she thinks of Shen's suggestion, since it sounds good to her. If she joins, she won't suffer from others anymore. That way, she can focus on her studies and still live a comfortable life. Reshma asks what she could do for Erin. Erin says she's been feeling very lonely lately and she needs someone around. Reshma then thanks her and says from now on she'll be her attendant and will never bring shame. Erin turns around saying she should thank Sian. Where's San? The boy's already gone. He knows from now on she can handle the rest. Now he knows why Reshma left the UCF Empire, and she probably wouldn't have lost mana control if it weren't for that bad beret. Now the person who was already the most powerful swordsman on the continent will have her mana intact. Probably will be someone difficult even for him to defeat. But that doesn't matter, because his attention is now on something else. That thing Sirika personally delivered to him this morning. Her order. My first chance to help the association with a like on this video, guys. And you guys remember that the last chapter ended with our boy saying he was more interested in what he had received. With the card in hand, he thinks that this is going to be quite difficult for a first challenge. However, he remembers that when she handed it over, she said she believed in his potential. The problem is, if the missions are already starting off this hard, he doesn't even want to think about what he'll have to do in a few days. Suddenly, though, he hears something nearby and an explosion out of nowhere. Shen wonders if the monster has invaded the academy. However, what appears is a 3-meter-tall musclehead asking if he is Sian Verdict. A bit embarrassed, our guy just questions if the man knows who he is, and he answers yes. The man claims to have the level of a magic 1, but physical level of S, and he knows very well that Sian Verdi is the youngest in the Verdi house. Man, this guy's name is Seth Shaharkin, and he's 11 years old. I'm just like Sian, not understanding how an 11-year-old kid has so much muscle and is so tall. Seth starts flexing his biceps, talking about what he's heard about Shan's exploits. From killing creatures to surviving an encounter with a dragon. He also heard that the boy received an evaluation of a rank S physique, something even he himself couldn't achieve. And that's why he wants to challenge him to a fight. That's when Sian seems to recognize this guy. All because of the mark on his chest. It represented Spain, which was his San Empire, and this guy apparently is his prince. This country is located in a desert to the east, and in his past life, Spain's entire army revolved around one single person, a prince who on his own made it impossible for any army to conquer Spain. That was a nation that carried the pride of never being conquered. However, the prince suddenly declined. He ignored his health so much and focused so much on training that he ended up dying from a random cold. Wow, what an epic story. What Sian never imagined was encountering the prince of this city here. He's certain this didn't happen in his past life, and now it's going to be trouble. However, he decides to respond by asking if the guy wants to fight now. Seth says yes, claiming it's the only way to determine who is the strongest man. The boy should know he won't accept a no for an answer. However, that's exactly what Sian replies, and Seth asks why. The protagonist explains that fights like this must be approved by the academy. First, they'd have to go to the office and send in a formal request. Seth immediately wants to know where this office is so they can go there now. As soon as Sian tells him, the guy runs off, saying he'll be back soon. Our boy thinks the guy is all muscle. Really, after all, the office is in the opposite direction, but he doesn't need to mention that. Not to mention there's no such thing as a training request, but he'll let the guy figure that out on his own. Oh, poor thing, completely fooled. The scene then shifts to the city. Hooded man tells Lord Zickerman that the product is ready. The man tells him not to stand there and to notify all the clients immediately. Zickerman Albus was one of the 3 richest men on the continent. Publicly, he's known as a philanthropist, generous with his donations. But in reality, he's trash who forces relationships between species. This is because he wants to create new mixed races to sell in the black market. Shannon's already watching while hearing the man say that today the best product he ever imagined will be born. Now Shan's target is confirmed, and it looks like this will be easier than he thought. However, as he picks up Karam, she says she's sensing a complex energy. He's confused, and she says the target seems to be hiding something. Zickerman then stops in front of the cell and says he finally has some peace and quiet. He tells his money factory to sleep well, but that's when he notices a strange black mist around him. Someone behind him strikes. The first headless one falls to the ground, and the knight asks who's there. Desperate, Zickerman yells for someone to kill whoever it is. But Shan rushes toward the man and lands a blow that makes him drop his sword. Another strike behind the knee, and Karam is already at his neck. Before the man can say anything, he's already taken down. This one doesn't hesitate. Zickerman starts screaming, asking where the rest of the knights are. Shin simply says he'll find out soon enough when he joins them. Although he had hired a lot of people, they were useless. Dragging himself on the floor, Zickerman asks if he wants money. But Shen just cuts his hand and says he already has enough of that. The fool falls to the ground, and Sion calls him by his name. He says he will be punished for the inhumane things he's done and for his participation in the slave market. That alone is reason enough for him to die. But since he's feeling generous, he'll give him a minute to repent for it all and free himself from the pain. Zickerman, however, crying, says it doesn't matter since he'll be killed anyway. He tries to explain that all they're doing is earning a living. The real culprits are the people interested in buying the goods. Shin simply says his minute has passed and he didn't even repent. He activates the 8 stanzas of the Black Mist and starts a sequence of attacks on the back.